And with that, welcome back everyone. Nice to have you here. And now we can finally continue with the polishing guide. And we have a part on my Audi here that I definitely want to show you. Here, you can definitely make some mistakes, especially if you are a beginner. That's why I'm giving you all the tips and tricks on the topic of polishing fenders in this video. And you will already notice that this is a different ball game than the hood, maybe even the roof. Everything up here is so super easy to reach. Everything is relaxed. You also have to pay attention to a few things there. But here, design is really very, very different for each vehicle. On the Audi, we have a very nice curved part here. We have two surfaces of different sizes. We have something quite unpleasant, such points in here, the very small, super tiny areas, and here again a really nicely pointed triangle. Yes, so this is not done in 2 minutes. Here, you also have to consider whether to use an even smaller polishing machine or do the whole thing, hand. And I want to show you that in the video today. What do we need for this? Of course, our favorite equipment. Choose what you like best from it. I have this one here as well, because I can easily convert it to the plate that is already included. And many of you have also gotten this starter set with the machine plate, including Sonax polish, everything that goes with it. You can of course do the same with other polishing pads. These are just my favorite pads at the moment, and polishes are also my absolute favorites. And because many have gotten the set, I want to create a bit of an exclusive tutorial for those as well. But we can still work with other polishes and pads or even machines. Yes, this is the component. Let's take a closer look. How are the scratches and the shapes? And before we do that, I also promised to measure everything again. And we take a look here and have 103 and 30. Here 123 further ahead. So these fluctuations are completely okay. 128 is also fine. I can go into the triangle here. 124. So it's fine. We are somewhere between 120. I can go down. Here it is even a bit thicker. 108 and 30. I'll go down further. 3 and 30. So the original paint does not match. Not repainted and also not heavily polished in any way. We would have very different values if a heavy cut had already been used here. So we definitely don't have that. How does it look here in the corner? 124. So that fits. I can also measure here at the edge again. 101 and 30. So everything is relaxed. We can approach it calmly with the techniques and the process that I always show you. You don't need to panic. It is very, very gentle. And we are getting closer to the optimal level. And now it begins. Let's go into the recording. Yes, first here to the scratches. Let's take a look at the upper area here first. I don't really know how the condition is. You can clearly see here that we have a nice fine layer of scratches on it. But everything is still within limits. Sometimes it looks different in the light than live. You can see very, very fine little scratches from the wind and the dirt flying around. There are also a few small burned-in spots. I hope this can be somewhat recognized here. But overall, I think we will achieve a lot here with the finish, or medium strength polishing. I always say that I first approach with gentle means, to show you, as beginners or those interested in polishing, the same method repeatedly, not constantly changing methods, because that only confuses you in the end. And that's why I always show you the same procedure, so that you have a certain level of confidence. And then I always know, okay, you learned from me at least 1,000 times, or you observed me. We can definitely do such wild things, such experiments, but I always show you a very, very safe and gentle way. So this is what the condition looks like. Here we also have this little edge again. I hope I can somehow get there with the light. Is it working? Can I get that there? I have to, of course, look along with you. We also have some small defects in there. And how does it look? In the triangle at the back, we also have 1,000 there. You can't get too close with the light. You see it completely overexposes. So step back a bit. Here we can already see that it could definitely look much nicer. Very, very clear. And also here again, double light reflection. Let's take a look at that shortly. Let's polish together. Just a few tips about the shape. So you can already see here, we have this large curved wheel arch area. We end up there at the transition to the bumper. Also end here at the transition to the hood. You can already see here, this part is predestined for 75mm. Take a look at it, very relaxed. Here, look, perfect. So that's ideal. But now we can already see the first problem. This here is not ideal. This small edge at the front. Now there may be one or the other who says, okay, I like to do it over. I just pay a little attention, gather your own experience, but I just want to show it safely. I would simply polish something like this by hand. I then take the hand polishing holder and just go over here at the front. But you can also do it at your own risk, just go over here. But then you see here, The pad is too large for this surface. Over here we can actually go quite far, but we can only get about this far. This means that this small triangle here at the top will not be achievable with the pad. We can go a little higher here, but the hood protrudes very, very far over this fender edge. This means that it is not flat here, but rather it looks like it protrudes a bit over here. And so when we work here, we hit this edge up here very hard. This means we would be polishing massively on this edge, and that might still work with a finish. But if you want to use a stronger polish, maybe the paint edge here is painted a bit thinner. That happens very quickly. Then you have a white stripe because you might have polished through very quickly. So be careful. Maybe also open the hood or use tape and fold it up. Let's prepare everything now, and then we'll polish the first strip. Let's make a transition here, and we'll also do it. Yes, as I said, folks, this is just for you here. Normally, I wouldn't put such tape strips here again, but so we can clearly see the 50-50 difference. I have a blue thermal pad on here. You can already see some light polish in it. I already worked a bit on the other side earlier, and that's why we're just going to continue using it. The nice thing about the Sonax polishes is 1, 2, 3, cap off. Turn it around, and now just press lightly, and boom. The polish comes out. You can also see here, I'm distributing it directly, working it in a bit with the head. Done. And then, what I really love about that one is that this extremely long cable is very, very advantageous. And now you can either in front of it, or if you have a lift, you can of course also get one. Or you sit in front of it like I do, and first work smoothly on the edge of the fender. And for that, I'll move you over here. So, important here again, we start over here and you first test whether you can completely reach this area nicely. Start down here, and we will first go all the way around this arc. Make sure to tilt the machine nicely as well. Also pay attention not to misalign it or anything like that. I'll give you a few tips and tricks in the voiceover shortly. First, let's distribute this here briefly. Remember to unlock the car, so the alarm doesn't go off while polishing. Then here on the side, level 2, that's actually the best. Distribute, and then I'll go directly to level. We'll soon switch to level 6, to full power, and then I can work on this evenly. So, as always, first distribute here on the surface, and for that, it's very easy, just on level 2. Level 9 actually works best for this, and then it first goes a bit along the shape. And especially if you are beginners, pay attention to whether you can reach all areas well. That means guiding the machine from top to bottom first, at a low speed, and checking if everything fits. And then you can actually just hold the machine straight. Grip it a bit in a way that suits you best in terms of shape. You'll also see shortly, I'll adjust my grip again because I noticed that, okay, it's a bit more comfortable this way. Do you see that? Bam! I adjust my grip and now we're going down, so to speak. And this way, you practically find your best handling, how you can manage it best. Then, on the narrow area, you see, the pad fits almost 100% on top here, but the area gets a bit narrower towards the bottom. You can see that nicely now. Pad now has optimal width. At the top, you might need to go over it a bit with 2 passes, overlapping slightly. You can see it here again, there's a little gap, and then I go back down, and now it nicely goes over the surface here. Yes, and then just nice and even. The surface should become slightly warm, not hot, but also not stay cold. Otherwise, you definitely have the case that it simply won't polish well enough. So it also needs a bit of heat in the surface for it to work well. So, and then all the way down. Of course, it's an advantage if you have a lift, you can get one for thousands of euros. But it's not always easy for everyone. And that's why it still works very, very well here. You don't actually polish on a fender for hours. It's actually very, very relaxed. Yes, and then the pass goes 1 or 2 times, so to speak, 1 to 2 cross passes, and then first check your intermediate result. And we will do that now, as well. Normally, I would do the entire triangle as far as possible. But we have the separation so that we can see a nice difference. That's why I'm only polishing now. I'll lower it a bit here, when I have a bit more space. So, I'm only polishing this upper part here, and you see I can only go this far, and the rest we might have to bevel a bit or do by hand, or get a smaller machine. That's always a bit of a disadvantage. Pay attention again to lower the speed. So take this triangle back to level 2 just like here. Don't forget, you had the higher level in before, I think. And then it goes in here as far as possible into the corners. Sometimes you can also go over the corners with the machine, just try a bit, but you can also quickly resolve it well by hand. Here I go up to 2-3 of the patch thickness into this corner, and then simply do the very simple tips afterwards. A little more by hand, I think that will also be exciting for you. Yes. Nice and even, nice and slow. And of course I go to the highest level here and control it completely through the pressure,
so just lightly guide it over the surface, not pressing too hard or anything. Polish, the polishing pad should do that completely on their own here at the end. Yes, and just feel your way along. If you say, okay, I'll check my interim result, do that, try it out briefly. If you see, okay, there are still a few small defects in it, just go over it a second time, feel your way. That's why I'm making this guide for you, so you can have a relaxed start and celebrate successes. It's easy. Get warmth, but not too hot. Let's take a look at the polishing pad here. Wonderful. Nothing is crusted, nothing is clumped in any way. The polish has spread nicely here in the polishing pad, nice and evenly. You can also see this small darker area at the back. I always refer to this area as the safety zone because we don't polish on the last piece at the back as we have a trapezoidal shape and there is naturally a bit of pressure missing from the backing plate in the last 5mm, but it's simply a pure safety zone. That's why the pads are shaped this way, among other reasons. So it's nice to see here it worked very well. Let's gently take the polishing cloth and remove the polish residues. Here, if you distribute it nicely and polish it well, then you won't have massive polish residues that you have to work with in large amounts. So, now let's go down to here. So, I'll take this piece down. I'm just going to trust my polishing skills directly.
It also has no fullness properties. Only 406, no. Wax content or anything like that. So, I will take this down as well, and we will just take a look together at what we have already achieved with this. First of all here, on the corner. So here, we have polished. And here we have the area that we have not polished. And bam, we have a really nice slanted transition, which we obviously still need to fix. And we will continue polishing down here. But it is very, very clear and nice to see. I will step back a bit. Yes, a very nice result. So, and here we also have the transition again. Here we have not polished. I hope it can be seen. There unpolished and there we have nicely bam. Transition, 2001, that is absolutely clear. And here unpolished. Good that the next car is a bit darker again. On the grey, it can't always be seen super optimally, but I believe you are experienced enough with polishing, right? So that you can see this, well, please look at the TV. It's easier than on the small phone. Let's go there. Let's also take another look at the area. It worked well. And 2001. Here we can see very clearly that we need to go over this again because we couldn't reach it with the polishing pad. And we will do that by hand now. So you have clearly seen what it's all about. Move nicely along this curve, right up to the edges. I was still relatively far up here, but not too heavily on the tape. It can withstand quite a bit of what I have here, and that's why I can go relatively far into this small, narrow, pointed corner. But we still have to do a lot by hand at the end, or you just buy a really small polishing machine. Believe something exciting might come your way in the future. Until then, add a little more here to the polishing pad. And now we can just do it by hand and go. We will also make a separation again. I want to assess with you how good my hand polishing skills are. And you know, I have become quite a professional. So also here. Anyone who says to use a small polishing pad, I would not recommend. You quickly bend it and press it crooked and wide. Even if you are now on the edges, as you can see here, it's no problem. You don't generate the ultimate strength like a polishing machine. And now, we will just go over the edges again. We also had the topic with Andreas regarding hand polishing. And some of you still do it. And I have shown you many times that you can achieve a lot with it. So you can achieve a lot there. And for such small, narrow areas, the question is whether to get a polishing machine for it, or if you have a friend who might have a small polishing machine, or simply get a polishing aid like this. This is the small clay kit variant from Chemical Works. Clay disc removed and this whole thing fitted with a pad. Now we go over the edges. You don't need to worry about polishing through here. No panic. You lack the power for that. So, if you do this for several hours and weeks, you might eventually polish through, but I don't believe it. So, I have to say, if a tiny scratch remains under the light, folks, yes, you have to decide. I wouldn't make a big deal out of it now. So, let's see how much has already been accomplished here. Let's take a look together. Well, I don't think it's that bad, do you? If you look over here, see, it still looks quite grey. All the spots and small scratches are still there. But if we look towards the polished area now, so sure, there are still a few small ones in there, but you have to decide, either get a new machine or say that the sun doesn't really shine there anyway. You can only see that with side lighting, which you don't actually have in nature. So for me, this here would be enough, for example, not this over here, but of course, the side. Here, you could also do a second round, but the result is already quite clearly different. So, I need to check the light. Don't cover it. So that's serious. I think hand polishing should be enough, right? Write it down below. Would that be enough for you, or would you want more? Does it have to be a polishing machine? A second round definitely doesn't hurt. Yes, and this way you can gradually make progress, step by step. Of course, you'll finish this part here, then you'll take care of the small field. It's already pretty narrow there too. Now here with my vehicle, with this TT1000, you simply have this shape, or with a TTS or Audi TT. Just have a very awkward shape here. There are other vehicles where everything is a bit elongated. The components are shaped differently. What's important is that you take away from this video. Try to do what you can with a machine using a machine as well. This offers a significant performance and time advantage. When you come to such very narrow corners, like here for example, that's why I'm showing you again. You can also work really nicely by hand right up to the edge. So here, apply a bit of pressure as well. No problem. The vehicle can sway a bit. And then you can do that. If you only have that on the vehicle, you will eventually go crazy. You should really get a small polishing machine. But for your own car, for most of you, this can be done with such a hand polishing aid. And I'm not opposed to using something like this to polish these very finely tapering tips. Because even here, if it is still about 1.5 centimeter, it can be done with a mini cordless polishing machine, for example. With an angle grinder or with a plate, you have no chance anymore. So I would definitely do everything by hand here. Also the triangle at the front. Or this very pointed tapering. Simply rework it by hand. I think that's more than enough. If you get to about 80-90%, that's definitely fine. You can also change the polishing pad to a stronger number. Otherwise, this is all just compact now. This could also, as mentioned, be done all by hand, just like we just did here. An ER pad works ideally. And with that, we have done this large area. We have done this narrow area by hand. The triangle here, the tapering, this also by hand. This here by hand. I would still do this part down here by hand, and then as soon as the machine has space again, everything with the machine is actually quite simple. And with that, you are done with the fender area. As I said, it is shaped a bit differently for each vehicle. Use a polishing machine, use this ER plate here, and the very narrow items. If you don't feel like using another machine, feel free to do this with a hand polishing aid. That concludes it. You have seen that the scratches on the fender are not as extreme as, for example, on the roof, because dirt tends to fly past here rather than hitting directly. That's why fenders are usually not so heavily scratched, unless the car is already 20 years old. But you can work with a finish polish here, and the X also has a very nice medium cut area. If you use the corresponding pad, you can also extract a bit more cut than from other finish polishes, for example. You can also use the 4-cut very, very well. Just take a stronger pad, medium hard in that area. It worked very well. Feel free to replicate. If you have questions, just reach out and we'll see each other next time. Thank you for watching, and we might see each other here again with the Audi, perhaps towards the door. Bye. Thank you.